I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rock Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Big week in America. Big, huge, historical week in America. Why? Because we have Laura Gassner Otting on the show, LGO. She is here to speak to you about becoming limitless in your life and pursuing your passion and pivoting wherever you're at and going towards success in a new fashion, a new way, and how to generate that and what it looks like for yourself. She is a friend of the show. She's a friend of mine. I've seen her speak pre-COVID, and she's amazing. She has this great energy. She is, for those who don't know, she's an author. She wrote the book Limitless, it caught fire early. It was like an instant classic. She's a coach. She has an online course, and she's everything that you want to be, have in a mentor, or because let's face it, a lot of people cannot mentor us personally, but they can mentor us from afar, either from their online content, their books, online courses, and or just YouTube and podcasts. She actually has a new program. I guess it's not a program, but she has a new outlet, a new platform. It's called LGO TV, where she interviews influencers, and you can go there. You can check her out on her website, lauragassnerotting.com, and you can find out more information about her. You can actually sign up for her online course if you want. I don't support a lot of online courses, but I do support hers because I know how important it is and how much work she's put into it, and the value. I've read her book, Limitless, and I highly suggest you guys go out there and get that. Her blog is amazing. She's a wordsmith. She knows how to write down her thoughts in a way that will inspire you and get you motivated to go out there and crush your goals and become limitless. You're legit when people are getting tattoos of your book, and she actually shows some of that on her social media, which I think is pretty wild and amazing, actually. Yeah. I'm actually still waiting for the first Your Superior Self tattoo. So if anybody is brave enough out there, go ahead, get it. I'll post it for sure. I'll like that. I'll like it. I'll share it. But here's a little clip about what we talk about in this interview.
Asked myself again, and it used to be the problem that I wanted to solve. I wanted to change the way people lived their lives. The problem that I see is that people are so limited by everybody else's definition of who they can be and what they can be and how they can be, and God forbid what they shouldn't be. And the solution that the problem needs, that I have a role in, is that I've spent 20 years interviewing people, leaders, at these massive moments of career shift and life shift, and I understand the framework that it takes to help them get from here to there. And I thought the medium was through the stage, and it turns out the medium is through any way that I can have my voice be heard, whether it's great podcasts like this or...
Yeah, I agree. I think COVID has really flipped our worlds on top of itself, and entrepreneurs, the one thing that we're really good at is pivoting and kind of changing the way that the game is played. And that's what LGO is speaking about is, pre-COVID, she had a method that worked, a plan that worked. And then after COVID, and she speaks about this in the interview, is she had to adapt to it. And she had to learn of outlets that would help her in her mission. And that's what she did. And she talks about that more in depth in this interview. And that's why I'm so excited, because she brings a ton of value. A lot of that experience she was talking about, we discuss it in this interview and how it's helped her become this entrepreneur, this powerhouse of an author. And it's such an I don't even know the word. It's so authentic, this conversation, because this is who LGO is. And I highly suggest you go and you check out our website. I highly suggest you get her book, Limitless. Go to lauragassnerotting.com. Look at her content. Look at the value that she presents to you. Sign up for her online course. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And hit me up when you guys get done reading your book, Limitless, because I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts. There's a lot of quotes and a lot of great information, research that she's put into this. And the one thing that Stephen Kotler taught me is that when you look at a book, right, like great authors, they put years and years of their own research and their own life experiences into these books. So when you read a book, you're not necessarily reading just, a year worth of authoring or actually doing the project. That's years and years of their lives that they've gathered this experience, that they gathered this information and research, and they're putting it into a 300-page, 400-page physical document that you will have for the rest of your life if you choose to. And go in there and highlight and carry it around with you and write it up on your vision boards, the quotes and the information that's in there, because it empowers you to be a better version of yourself, and it gives you just an insight of the author's life and what they've had to overcome. That's why I love books so much. But anyway, without further ado, I know you guys are excited. I'm excited as well. Let's get into it. Let's get after it. Here is my conversation with Laura Gassner Otting.
Hi, I'm LGO, and I'm the author of Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life.
LGO, what is up? How are you?
How you doing, Trey? I'm
It's
so
been a
glad to
long
be
time.
back.
It's been a long time since we talked. I think last time I saw you was at Cadre.
Yes.
That was over a year ago, I think.
Yes.
And then you were on the podcast. I don't know if before or after, but it's been a while.
It's been a while. And the whole world has changed since the last time we spoke.
Gosh. I think, your book Limitless basically broke the machine called Earth and basically started rotating the Earth in a different direction and knocked it off its axis, because it's definitely crazy since your book Limitless launched. It has just been, it was one of those books that just caught fire right away, went up the charts. You're right behind Michelle Obama. You did all the daytime shows. You've been on all the podcasts, interviews. I mean, you basically broke the Earth with this.
I broke the Earth. It's funny because the book came out in hardback last April, but the way that bookstores work at the airports is that it's like pay to play. So you have to pay for placement at the airports. And I had actually signed a contract in November to have my book in bookstores in airports in March, April, and May. So maybe I did break the Earth. Maybe it is my fault. We didn't sell a lot of airport books in March, April, and May. I'll tell you that.
Change the name from COVID to LGO because she broke the Earth.
Terrible.
So how have you been? I mean, you're crushing it. You got the online course going. You got your online presence ramping up. Like, how have you been? We talked a little bit beforehand, but like, let my guys know, my audience know.
I've been pretty good. I have become really like hyper clear on what helps me succeed and what gets in my way. And I spent the first month of COVID pretty much blaming COVID, being like, well, my job is to be a speaker, and I get on planes and I go to stages and I speak in front of people, and then I move, hundreds of books, at events, and people sign up for my newsletter list, and that's how I grow my audience. And then about a month into it, I realized it's not COVID's fault that I'm not speaking on stages anymore. It's actually my fault. It's my lack of creativity. It's the fact that I didn't see the internet as a way to have a stage. In fact, an even bigger stage, right? So all you need is a webcam and a ring light, because I'm 49 and mama needs a little help. I didn't realize that I just needed a little bit of technology to be able to actually be in front of an even bigger stage, right? So take all the stuff that I'm doing with the book and on stages and put it into an online course and put it into webinars and put it into master classes. And suddenly the world where I was waiting for somebody to tell me I was good enough so that I could be on their stage, suddenly it's become democratized, right? Little d democratized, where there's no gatekeeper anymore. It's just me going live on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube every day, and people come find me. And so I have been exhausted, but also, that moment that you have where you're so fueled by clarity that you just have to keep going. You can't not do the work. Like you get up at 3 a.m, you just have to do it because you see the answer in front of you. You just have to get there.
Mhm.
That's how I've been.
That's awesome. I love the realization, right? Like that you were blaming code for this, like not being on stages, not being able to travel. And then like you just had this extreme ownership of like, it's my fault, right? Like how many people would do that? I think people need to do more of that.
Yeah, so I came down to, okay, the way that I spend my time is I say, what is the problem I want to solve in the world? Number one. Number two, what is the solution that problem needs? Not the solution I want to give necessarily, because that's just my solving the problem, my own ego. But what's the solution that the problem actually demands? So what needs to happen for that problem to be solved? And then the third question is, what is the best medium through which I can deliver that solution? So that's what I asked myself again. And it used to be the problem that I wanted to solve. I wanted to change the way people lived their lives. The problem that I see is that people are so limited by everybody else's definition of who they can be and what they can be and how they can be, and God forbid what they shouldn't be. And the solution that the problem needs, that I have a role in, is that I've spent 20 years interviewing people, leaders, at these massive moments of career shift and life shift, and I understand the framework that it takes to help them get from here to there. And I thought the medium was through the stage, and it turns out the medium is through any way that I can have my voice be heard, whether it's great podcasts like this, or it's through book writing or online courses or any of those things. And what I realized was it actually, not only did I have this great moment of clarity that it was actually my fault, I actually realized that I was actually holding myself back. All the year that I spent promoting Limitless, I was holding myself back from reaching even more people. So when I'm on the Today Show and I'm on Good Morning America and all of that, and then you go to find me on my website and I don't even have a sign up for my newsletter, or I don't have a take this 4-question quiz and get a free download. I wasted so much time not thinking about how do I grow the platform? So if what I want to do is change the world and empower people to be the very best versions of themselves, the way I do that is to grow my platform so that I can amplify those voices.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, but every education costs money, right? That's trial by fire. I mean, you wrote this book, right? And if you guys want to hear more about that, you can check out our episode with LGO previously. You write this book, it blows up, but I mean, you're not trained for that. Like you are just going as the book goes. And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's valuable experience to be able to help somebody, like an author who's just coming out with a new book, being able to be like, hey, look, this is what you're going to experience. This is what you're going to go through. Like, trust me on this. This is what you need, X, Y, and Z. I think that you have that experience and you have that's valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I could write a whole other book about the things I did wrong writing the book.
Not to do.
Exactly. So, we were talking about this before we started recording, but whenever anyone asked me oh, your book was such a success, debuted at #2, Washington Post bestseller list, blah, 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 everything's great. You must have had a ton of followings. And I was like, yeah, guess how many people I had in my newsletter list before I launched the book? And they're like, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000. I'm like, it's a trick question. I didn't even have a newsletter list. I wrote the book because I found myself on stages where all the other people on the stage had books. And I was like, I am an imposter. I better get me one of them books, right? So I wrote the book based on the stuff that I was talking about on stage and the 25 years of work that came before it. And then all of a sudden it became successful. And then, as I was saying, I had to I've been living in this house for a year that I've been shoving foundation underneath, I'm trying to make sure the thing is actually real. And so the trial by fire, I feel that, Trey, I feel that it's so real, because I think that so many of us say oh, well, I'm not going to go start the new business, or I'm not going to change jobs, or I'm not going to, get married or leave my spouse or whatever it is. I'm not going to make that big change because I'm not ready. And the truth is, none of us are ever ready, because it's never going to be perfect. Before we started this podcast, you were talking about how you started the podcast and it was mostly business, and it's grown to where it is now. And it is so much better and so much richer.
Sure.
But if you thought you were going to start where it is now, you would have lost so much of what gave it texture along the way. And I think that's what makes us, that's why we like to listen to old people and talk about, stories with their wisdom. We don't just want smarts. Smarts is like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And he's right. And I can never do it, but yeah, he's really smart. And wisdom is like the framework to see yourself in the story and to understand it and go, that's right. I can get there. I can do it.
Yeah. No. Is there like a quote or something like the youth is wasted on the young or something like that? Like something to that effect where, when you're young, you're just dumb. Like you just like, even as I sit here in this chair and look back and see all the lessons that I've learned through the podcast or the people that I met, and to even think that I'm even close to where I'm going to be in a year from now, like it's crazy. You're always growing. You're always learning. You're always developing. I mean, even yourself, like, you joke about your age, but in a year from now, you're going to be totally different. I mean, biologically, you're going to be different. Your cells in your body are going to die and reproduce themselves in a different way. And then personality wise and ego wise, like we grow all the time. It's just like stepping out of yourself, stepping out of your mind and being aware of that and being like, you know what, and take it as a challenge. Like I always say, the universe happens for you. It's testing you, even in your darkest moments, even in the hardest moments. It's a test to see if you're going to choose whether it be to be a victim or choose to be, to persevere. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's so true. My birthday was in February and I turned 49, and I say all the time on podcasts that I'm 49, and my mother was listening to one of them and she's like, why are you telling people how old you are? Like, cause because it is a fact. It's like the sky is blue. I'm 49. Who cares? And when I turned 49 this year, a guy that I know, another speaker, called me up and he's like, hey, happy anniversary of your 29th birthday. Ha ha ha. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you're 29. You don't look a day over 29. I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And that's okay. I have wrinkles and I have scars and I have the roadmap of a life well lived. I'm proud of the age that I am. I'm proud of the lessons that I've learned along the way. I'm proud of the successes that I've had. I'm proud of the mistakes that I've learned from. I would never want to say, oh yeah, I'm, like it's saying, oh, happy 29th birthday. By the way, to men that are listening, when you wish a woman a happy 29th birthday, it reminds her that she doesn't look 29 anymore. Don't do that. but it also discounts the 30 years that came after and how she blossomed into a full version of herself. And I love the fact that I have multitudes within me. I ran my very first mile of my life just 10 years ago, and now I'm a competitive rower. I love that in, my midlife, I'm finding this extra layer, this contour, this nuance inside of me. I love that we're not complete. I don't know who there's some, very famous thinker or philosopher or somebody who maybe it's like Michelangelo who said, so like on his deathbed, it was like, I'm still learning, right? Like I love the fact that we're constantly growing and learning and changing. Cause I think when we stop, that's when we start dying.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think I agree with you 100%. But with the success, right, that you've experienced with the book, and I've always questioned this, right? Like, if I ever were to be successful at something, and I studied a little bit this in some of the psychology books, what the chemicals associated with success and getting to where you're at with the book. Like, does it scare you a little bit about the next project? Like, do you feel like, oh God, like this next book, whatever it is, has to be better than that?
Well, sure, right? I mean, I know so many people who've had really big, you hear stories about musicians with huge albums or authors with big books, and they write another one and it's like sophomore slump, right? But I don't really put a ton of concern into that, because I do feel like if I do something that is the very best of what is inside of me and what I've learned along the way, it's going to be a better product. And if I take the lessons that I learned in the sort of figuring it out marketing and then guerrilla marketing and then maybe some like actually smart marketing along the way, it's going to be better marketing. It's going to have better package, better marketing, better product. I'm going to have a bigger network. I think that the reason why people have sophomore slumps, or the reason why the next thing isn't as good, is because they get arrogant they think that they just put something out and of course everyone's going to buy it. So they don't do the work to do the grassroots to, build up the pre-sale campaign. Sure. Or maybe they're arrogant and they don't listen to their editors and they think, no, actually the book should be 700 more pages, right? Like, no, nobody cares, right? Like, so I think it's making sure that you surround yourself with good people and you continue to listen to them. Because, every time you get in a position of leadership, you're expected to speak a lot. Like, think about any leader, they sit at the head of the table and they talk a lot.
Sure.
So the higher you get in leadership, the less you listen. And I think if you can continue to listen, if I can continue to listen to people that are much smarter than I am, then I'll be okay. And frankly, if I'm not, then I'll reinvent and do something else.
Yeah, I love that. But it's like everyone gets addicted to that, like dopamine, like the success. And it's like, that's addicting, right? Like, I mean, that's the reason why I run is the endorphins. Like I love the runner's high. Like I do it all the time because it's like, it changes my consciousness. It helps me focus on projects. It helps me be more creative. And then you got the dopamine hit of hitting, 10 miler or a half marathon or whatever. And it's addicting. And the same thing with success.
Yeah, but here's the question. So you run, and then I see you post on Instagram, you post your post with like your fingers, like however many, miles you've run. So here's my question. Do you get the endorphins and the dopamine hit from the running or from the likes from the post?
I would say I post because I want to motivate. Some people don't like the pictures because I feel like it makes them feel bad about themselves. Like I think they're hating on me because like I'm out there at 4:00 in the morning running. But I see what you mean. Like I get the dopamine hit when I go to work right after my run. And it's like, I just ran in the morning like that. I just accomplished something, that goal. Right. Like, but I'm feeling good too. Like the endorphins, like the they relate endorphins to heroin, like that feeling of like, of just true, like that warmth that I don't know what else to call it. I've never done heroin, but I'm just saying.
But I think as long as you're getting the hit from the thing that you're doing that's bettering yourself,
yeah,
and not from the likes. I think when we become a slave to the likes and the loves and the shares and the, I think when we become a slave to the external validation, that's when we go astray. And that's when we start putting out the book or the podcast or the music that we think the market wants, as opposed to really digging in and finding something that's interesting, in ourselves. I was just on a call earlier today with, I'm part of this Marshall Goldsmith 100, the top 100 coaches in the world. And we were having, our weekly conversation, and Marshall was leading us through a conversation about imposter syndrome and victimhood. And the whole conversation was around people who feel like they're imposters because they're not whoever. Like, I'm on stage and I want to be the next Oprah, but I can never be as good as Oprah. Or I'm on, I'm writing a book and, I want to be the next Brene Brown, but I can't be Brene Brown because I'm not Brene Brown. And it reminded me of my friend Scott McCain, who wrote a book called Iconic. And the book is all about how some brands become household names and are iconic for, through the ages. And he has this bit when he speaks where he was saying that at the height of his popularity, all the music executives wanted to know who was going to be the next Elvis. But it turns out that the next Elvis were the Beatles. Like, the next band that was able to sell as many records as Elvis were the Beatles. And Elvis and the Beatles didn't sound anything alike. So then they were like, well, who's going to be the next Beatles? So they searched and they searched and they searched. And the next act that sold as many records as the Beatles was Michael Jackson. Right? Not exactly like the Beatles. And then they searched and they searched and they searched. And the next person who sold as many albums as Michael Jackson was Garth Brooks, right? Totally different. So it's like this, when we put ourselves in this place where we want to imitate everybody else and we want to get all the likes and all the loves, then we don't look deep into ourselves and figure out what our art is, like what makes us special. And when we're not doing that, when we're not living fully into our own personal potential and we're listening to everybody else's definition of what success should look like and who we should be and how we should be and how we should act, then we sell ourselves short. So my question came from wondering if the reason that you get the high is from the run or from the after posting. And the fact that it's from the run is like awesome, because it means that you are intrinsically motivated to continue to find the very best version of yourself out there on the road on all your miles.
Yeah, no, that's where I battle myself. Like, it's war. Like, it literally is war with my body. Like, I don't want to do it. I hate it. Like, resistance is always telling me, stay in bed, man. Like, you don't have to go do this. Like, it's nice and warm and pillow is soft and it's,
and you're alone out there too. Nobody would know if you didn't do it.
That was in the wintertime. Like, I mean, it was cold. Like I'm like these mornings now, like it's sunny early in the morning. Like it's nice. And it's like, but in the wintertime, it's like dark for the entire run, I'm out there near the woods. So I'm like, definitely, I got my AirPods cranked up. So I don't want to hear anything coming after me, but like, it's intimidating, but it's me like shedding the layers of my ego, shedding the layers of myself and like really trying to find out who I am. And it took a long time. Like I'm just battling this idea of what I truly think I am to get to the actual true self, the higher self. And I just had a conversation the other day with a friend and he was like, dude, you admire Joe Rogan, you admire Aubrey Marcus, you admire all these great people, you admire LGO, everybody. But why don't you admire yourself? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, dude, you do more research on people than I've ever seen in my life. You explore your curiosities and you go after that and you have these great people in your podcast. Like no one else is doing that. Like, why don't you ever admire yourself? And I'm like, yeah, that's a deep question, man. I don't know.
So, the way to think about doing that makes it a lot easier to do. Okay.
Yeah. What do you got?
Okay. So imagine, if you will, like Serena Williams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Greatest female tennis player of all time, maybe just even greatest tennis player of all time. When she goes out to practice every day, she doesn't say, what went wrong in that match? I'm going to spend 5 hours doing that. She says, what do I do really well? And she works on that and works on that and works on that. And yeah, she spends some time on the stuff that didn't go well, but she grooves the pattern of what works. So if you go and you do a big presentation, and your listeners, I'm sure will feel this example, you have a big high stakes piece of work and you go out and you do it. And like 90% of it's pretty good, right? You're proud of yourself. And then there's 5% on either end where you're like, that could have gone a little better. Or thank God I didn't get a question about that. Or I'm so glad nobody noticed that, that one, mess up that I had. And then you beat yourself over the head about it so much in the coming weeks that you only focus on that 5% another time, you focus on that 5%. And then you go back and you go again and you get 90% right again and you get 5% wrong on the other side, but it's a different 5%, right? Because you just like, you're just like, I can never get it right. I can never get it perfect. Mm-hmm. And what we fail to do is we fail to groove the pattern of what works. So we spend all this time beating ourselves up over the things that we don't do well, but we don't admire our own work. We don't say, what was the 90% that went well? Let me work on that and practice it and admire it and be grateful to myself for it and feel proud of myself for doing it so that I can groove the pattern so that next time it's not an accident. It happens on purpose. Yeah. So it's not, if you feel uncomfortable admiring yourself because that feels kind of egocentric, I would say, why don't you do the same thing that you do with your physical training and the same thing that you do with your prep for your podcast and for your work is to just groove the pattern of what works so that you're making the success intentional and purposeful as opposed to just possibly accidental.
I love that. Like just owning that this is who you are. This, owning that 90%. I love that. Where, like, can you explain like where you do that in your life? Like, in your career, like, or in your speaking and writing, like what 90% do you own?
I own the commit to the bit. So if you watch people on stage that really like great storytellers and the people that really carry they carry you with them through a story, they're the ones, they fully commit to the bit. I mean, they tell the story, they're in the moment, they pause. They wait for you to catch up. They are physical with with their body. They modulate their voice, and you're with them so much in the story that you're like riding the roller coaster up and down with them. And so when you finally get to the end and the release, you're like, oh, yes. And then the applause is the audience giving you that hug that they can't give you because they're so happy to have gotten to the end of the story with you in that great way. And so I used to, when I first got on stage, I would like rush through everything and I would hope I would just get all my lines right. And then what I realized was it's actually not about speaking on stage. It's about pausing on stage. So everyone's always like, how did you get so brave to be able to speak in public? And I'm like, I got brave because I'm able to pause in public. Just that there is no louder sound than the deafening cacophony of when you land a point stage left and you have to walk all the way over to stage right to say the next point. And you listen to the breath of every single, like you can hear the people in the audience breathing in, breathing out. That guy over there sneezes, that one's getting up to go to the bathroom, and you're like, oh my God. But if you just carry the audience with you, and the first time you do that well, and then you land that next point and everybody applauds, or somebody goes, yes, or they cheer or they laugh, it's like the half marathon. It's the endorphin rush. It's the half marathon. It's the, like, you just, everything in your body goes, oh, I need more of that right now. And so to practice that piece is really the, that's the stuff that I've been trying to groove, because it's not about remembering every single line. It's about remembering the emotional journey that I want to take people on, and just allowing them the space and the time to catch up with me, even if it's the 74th time I've told the same story.
Sure.
It's saying it in the moment.
But when you're walking from stage left to stage right, like, is it that Beyonce walk, like that slow, like power walk, like boom, boom, and then hit them with the next point, the transition?
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's me talking about how I would do this, and then I had to run to the next thing and do the other thing, and then I had to run to the next thing. So I'm running across the stage, and sometimes it's, and then I yelled at them with everything that came out of my body. I mean, and I like do a thing where I'm like, alien came out of my body. Like I'd like pretend like the, things coming out of my stomach. And then I stand there and I go, and I wasn't proud. Yeah. So off to school we went, and then I walk slowly across the stage, and then I talk about what happened at school. And, so it really just depends on the story. And that took me probably a year to really understand and to get. And I would probably say that right now, like pre-COVID, I was getting off the stage and going, that was probably an A-, maybe a B+, but probably an A- on the day I really hit it well. And I'm hoping that a year from now, and 2 years from now, and 3 years from now, I look back and I go, wow, that was kind of a C- at best, because I will have learned and grown so much.
Yeah, you're growing all the time. I mean, from where you started to where you are now, you have definitely grown. I mean, look at your studio right now. Like, I mean, you're killing it. Like, I mean, just your confidence level is on another level. Like, I can just tell. I mean,
well, it's really funny. So I have this whole studio set up because, I'm doing media and, like, Today Show, Good Morning America, all of that. And when they call you and they're like, can you be on tomorrow morning? And you're like, well, shoot. Yes. And you sort of have to figure out, how to find all the moving blankets in your house. So, you can like create a view behind you.
Good.
And thank you. And it's interesting because when COVID first happened, I started just going live to, my tribe every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, and people started showing up. So I started talking, and I was like staring at the screen, and I was looking around the room, and I wasn't making eye contact. And then I was like, actually, you have to stare into the camera. Like, you have to really look at it. And I have a friend who's a photographer who said to me, he photographed Oprah once, and he said, how do you connect to people? You connect so well to people on camera. And he said, Oprah said, I look at the camera and I know I have to look through the lens, and then the camera, and then through the wire, and then through the satellite, and then through their TV, back to like, there are so many, I have to look through so many. So it's like the depth of staring, because I thought I would stare at the camera and people would be like, that woman's a psychopath, she's staring. But it turns out you really have to, it's like they say, like, make love to the camera or whatever. Like, you really have to see the person on the other side in order to, like, have that conversation. So I think for me, just going to my community every day has allowed me to get the reps in to really feel comfortable. And honestly, I think I'm going to be a completely different speaker when this is all done. A friend of mine who's also a speaker said that 2020 was going to be the year of the rant, that we were just going to like forget our scripts. We were going to get on stage and we were just going to rant about something that we cared about, because we're both so much better when we're super emotional.
Sure.
And then COVID happened. And so, we're not getting on stages, but I think being able to I talk to my community every day for 20 minutes every single morning. And I don't ever have a script. I don't have notes. I don't have any subject before I get on. I just get on and I talk. And I think I've just gotten much more comfortable extemporaneously speaking, again, about the thing that I believe so deeply in my core, like about my art, about my subject, about the topic, the thing that I can't not talk about.
Yeah. No, I think there's something going on. Like there's this creative vibe coming from us. Like when you do something that you care about, like I know when I'm in deep connection with a guest like yourself, like it doesn't, like I don't even know where this content comes from. Like it's like coming through me. It's like,
Yes.
and I know you feel this when you're writing your book. Like when you wrote your book, Limitless, like it was like the words were just coming through you. Like you don't even, I'm guarantee you didn't know where they were coming from. Like some authors have explained it as like the words are coming through the earth, through them to the page. Like it was just another source of creativity, another, just this higher self writing these words. And that's how I feel like in some of these episodes, like when you get in your zone, when you get into flow, it just seems like the magic comes from another place. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, look, my whole book, Limitless, is about this idea of consonance, right? This idea of alignment, of flow, when the what you do matches the who you are. And I think so many of us never feel that because we're so busy pursuing everyone else's definition of success. We're pursuing the career that they think we're supposed to have. We're pursuing the marriage that they expect us to want. We're pursuing, having the house and the car and the kids in the right schools and all those things. And because of it, we end up chasing someone else's dreams. And you and I both know, and I'm sure your listeners know, you can't be insatiably hungry for someone else's goals, someone else's dreams, someone else's hopes. You just can't be. You can check off all the boxes and be the good egg and get all the gold stars.
Mm-hmm.
But the kind of insatiable hunger that you need to really create your best, to be your best, to live that one big juicy life that you've been put on this earth to live. You can't live it if it's somebody else's. You're just not gonna, like, everyone says, oh, I would love to do that, but I don't have the time, and I don't have the money, I don't have the knowledge. Well, you don't have the time because you didn't care enough to make time for it. You don't have the money because you've decided it's not worth your investment, because you don't have the knowledge because you weren't interested enough to pursue it. You just weren't curious. Like, you will not do the thing if you can't see the light at the other end of the tunnel. Someone else's goals are a cave, right? Your goal is a tunnel. Like, you want to get through it.
Sure.
So I definitely feel that, like, when you are in consonance, when what you do matches the who you are in the state of such alignment and flow that it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like energy. It just comes through, and my energy comes through in words.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, you're a great author. I mean, you're like, seriously, wordsmith.
Well, I wrote Limitless in like 6 weeks.
That's insane.
But it took me like 25 years and 6 weeks to come up with it. So the way that I describe my writing is it's like I'm a very fast writer. I write in basically final form. Like, you've read a lot of my, long posts on Instagram and Facebook. And literally I wake up in the morning, I pick up my phone and I tap out 10 paragraphs with my thumbs, and then I press send, and that's it. And that's why half of them have typos, or like 95% of them have typos. But when I write in this sort of, when I get rid of the governor, the governor in your brain that says, like, don't write that, you should edit it, don't use that word,
Sure.
You can do it better. It slows me down. So what happens is I spend all this time like walking around the house, proverbial house in my mind. And from the kitchen window, you can see the table. And from the living room window, you can see what they're watching on TV. And from the bedroom window, you can see some other stuff. But right, so every window, you can see what's happening in the house. And but once you find the front door, you can run into that house like thing one and thing two from Dr. Seuss, and where everything is already, because you've circled the house, you've cased the joint so many times that the layout. But sometimes it's just finding the story, the hook, the one word, the one like framework, the coat rack, whatever it is that you're like, oh, that's how I go in. That's the front door. So for me, Amy Cuddy is a great writer. She's the Power Pose. She wrote Presence. She was doing this quarantine happy hour, writing happy hour, where she was interviewing a bunch of authors about how we write. And she interviewed me, and I was sort of telling her the story about how, like, I'm basically like the house thief. Like, I walk around, and then I find the front door in, and I know where all the jewels are, because I've spent so much time thinking about it that when it comes time, as soon as I'm ready to write, the words pour out of me.
Stealing the jewels in the house.
Stealing the jewels.
What time do you get up and write? Do you get up and go immediately start writing, or is it like you have to have your coffee? You get to sit in your favorite seat.
So I don't drink coffee.
No.
I'm like this. In fact, I'm actually sitting here drinking chamomile tea right now.
Well, do you have to have your tea before you know what I mean? Like what time? What time of day do you write?
So my days are I'm pretty regimented on my writing days. So I usually wake up sometime around 4:30 or 5 because, as I mentioned, I row. So the rowing happens early in the morning. So tomorrow morning I'm on the water. We're hands on the boat at 5:45. So I'm on the water from 6 to 8. I'll come home. I'll take a bath. TMI, usually in a bath, that's where I sort of answer some of the, burning emails. Then I put the phone down and I don't look at it for another few hours. So I put the phone down, I have some green tea, and then I usually write for about 3 hours. And so what that means is, for me, I am most creative in the morning. Mm-hmm. So I've exercised, I have the endorphins, I have the energy, I've had some green tea. So my brain is alive. I know that I don't have anything burning in my email box, so I don't have to put my internet on, and I can just sit and I can write. And I'm not a night person. I mean, we're recording this right now. It's 8:45.
Yeah, my apologies.
And no, but my husband was like, "How are you going to form sentences?" I'm like, "I don't really know. We'll see."
It's a good thing it's my show, because we're free flowing here.
Yeah, Trey's great. So I knew I would be in good hands. I wouldn't have done this for somebody that I didn't know, but I knew that you were great. So I write in the morning, and then at lunch, I'll take a lunch appointment. Obviously, we're not doing that right now, but normally I would have a lunch appointment, and then there's sort of calls in the afternoon. And I know that for me, I am most creative in the morning. So that's my gold. Some people are more creative in the evenings. And so what I used to do is anytime anybody wanted to like pick my brain, or can I get your opinion on something, or, those drive-bys you get all the time, I'd be like, yeah, let's maybe just do them first thing Monday morning and get them out of the way. And then a friend of mine was like, well, if your mornings are your most creative time, why are you giving away your gold? And I realized, that's really smart. So now on my calendar, 3 days a week, there are 3-hour blocks. And my assistant knows that she can move them. So I can have the 3-hour blocks Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever days it needs to be. But she can't move one block to another week. If she really, really has to, she can get rid of it so that there's only 2. But she doesn't do that more than 2 weeks in a row. And it's usually like only once a month that happens. But so she knows that if she needs to move something because somebody can only meet on a Tuesday, she just moves that block to a Wednesday. But she preserves for me those 3-hour blocks, because that's really when I'm at my most creative. And when I'm flowing, and I don't want that to stop.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like 10 a.m. That's like prime time for me. Like I don't know what it is. It's just like I am in this other zone where everything just flows freely. Yes. Stephen Kotler talks about, he gets up at like 3:00 in the morning and he goes downstairs, gets coffee, and he immediately writes, because he's in that, I guess because of the brain waves, like right now we're in beta. It goes beta, alpha, theta. Theta on the line is, it's on the line next to, I guess the flow state is on the line of theta and gamma or something like that, where you get that least resistance, where the prefrontal cortex shuts down, the sense of self shuts down. You just basically are, no limits on your ideas. And that's where he likes to write. And I don't know if I could form a sentence at 3 a.m., but I could run.
I mean, look, there are people who say that the way to be a writer is to write every single day. I've just never been one of those people. So what I do, like in those 3-hour blocks, there are some days where like I can write long form book. I can write a chapter. And there are some days where I'm like, yeah, I don't have any words for that today, but I have a list of blog topics that I want to write about. So I can start noodling around some of those. And some days what I write is crap. And some days what I write is great. And it's instant and I can use it, immediately. But I have never been the kind of person who feels like to be a writer, you have to write. I'm always thinking about writing. So on my runs or when I'm rowing, I'm kind of like turning things over in my brain. I do believe really strongly, though, that you have to have time for your brain to take all the inputs and all the different ideas and attach them to different things. So the front door I was talking about sometimes is a vulnerable story from like the 7th grade science fair when I was second in the state and I tripped going up the stairs in front of everybody, like ass over kettle, wearing like Garanimals. Sometimes that's the way into a business story that I hadn't figured out how to talk about. And I don't remember them, except I'll be like out in my backyard pulling weeds. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, remember what happened in 7th grade? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that's the way to write that thing. And then I make a note to myself, and the next time I write, there I have the front door.
That's what fascinates me, is like, how can I get my brain to have like a ton of aha moments like that brilliant moment where everything comes together? Because it never happens it happens when you least expect it. Like, you can try all your hardest to like have these moments, but it just comes out. It's crazy. If you ask like all these different scientists and all these different philosophers, like, when did you ask Einstein when he had the theory of relativity or whatever it is, he's like, aha, it probably happened in the bathtub after a row,
Exactly. There's a great book by my friend Rahaf Harfouche. I just interviewed her. She was my very first interview on my little LGO TV project. She wrote a book called Hustle and Float, and it's all about how in this world where we have learned to idolize the hustle, right? We have all this hustle porn that's out there. We forgot how to float. We forgot that in between the hard work, there should be times where we relax. And it's in the relaxing, it's in the floating that we actually are able to jump in. Like she likens it to if you're white river rafting, and if all you're doing is like working really hard on the rapids, and you never get the float down the calmer river, you don't actually have the energy to work really hard on the rapids when they come back, right? So you need to have some hustle and you need to have some float, and it's a great book. I think you would love it, and it is written for people who want to reclaim their creativity in a world that is so addicted and obsessed to the hustle and the work and all of that.
I love that. I'm definitely gonna check it out. But you have a online course, right? Like, tell us, like, how can I get a piece of that?
So, this is what was happening. I would get on stage and I would talk to 2,500 people, and I'd get off stage and they'd get in line to sign books, and they'd say, that was great, I loved it, how can I go deeper? And I'd have to look at them and say, you can't. Here, go read my book. Thank you very much. Because I was so worried about not getting it right that I didn't do it. And so fast forward a year, I've been in front of tens of thousands of people. I got to see every aha moment, every idea land, every knowledge bomb explode in people's brains. I got to walk across the stage all Beyonce-like and hear the like, oh. So I knew what the moments were, and I was like, okay, COVID is hitting. People are going to be home. Now I know how to do this, and I know how to do it really well. I know the things that people really want to hear and really want to understand. And so that's what I did. So I built the Limitless Course based on what's in the book, and also what I learned, like the questions that I was getting in Q&As over the years. So I know exactly what the things are that are holding people back from being able to put into practice what's in the course itself. And so anybody can find that at heylgo.com/learn. And I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes as well. But all my good friends, as you call me, LGO. So my website is heylgo.com. I'm on all the social channels at heylgo. And heylgo.com/learn is where you can find the course.
Love it. LGO, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh boy. I want people to get up at my funeral and say, my life was better because she was part of it. And that's really all I want. That is entirely it. My superpower is that I'm able to look at people and see in pretty short form their greatness and reflect it back on them in ways that maybe they've never seen it before, or maybe they've never deigned to believe and actually act on before. And I want people not to say that their life is better because I was in it, because I did something, I like gave them something. I want them to say their life was better because I showed them themselves. And so because I was in it, their life was better.
That's why so
that's
many
my
people.
legacy.
That's why so many people got the tattoo Limitless, right? The symbol.
Crazy. It's
It's
crazy.
awesome.
It's
I mean,
unbelievable.
somebody has that on their body forever. Like you did that.
Yes, she has a giant tattoo on her arm. And not only, like, this woman, Tara, sent me the video and explained to me why she did it. And I was speechless. I was in Las Vegas with my family actually when I got the video, and I got it first thing in the morning, and I sent them down to breakfast because I couldn't form sentences, and I couldn't speak for like 2 hours. And then I finally went down and I found my family and I started talking to them about it. And I, texted her back and I was like, this is unbelievable. And she writes back, it's right next to my dead father's Air Force wings. And I was like, oh my God. I just like the place of honor. So here's the thing. This is what that told me. It didn't say, wow, that's amazing. Somebody loves me. They put a tattoo of my book on their arm. What it said to me is, LGO, you better get this right. Because people are listening and you're impacting them and they're doing things based on the words that you say and the words that you write. So you don't have the space to get this wrong. So you better get this right. And so,
but don't be too hard on yourself, because I you know what I love about you though? Like your authenticity. Like you are who you are. Like I love having a conversation with you. I love hanging out with you on the show. I love meeting you in person. I love watching you talk, because that's who you are all the time. And I think that, like, you can't mess that up. Like you're always getting better. I mean, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. But, before I did this, I did executive search for 20 years. And, I did executive search for nonprofit organizations. And so you got to get that right? Like putting somebody in charge of an organization that's there to impact people's lives. And if you don't get that right, you're messing up a lot of people's lives. So I take really seriously what I do and my responsibility to the people that I love and the causes that I hold dear. And I think that there are a lot of speakers out there and, some authors, but I think a lot of speakers who are so worried about like getting the joke right or like selling from stage the right way that they're not doing as deep of a dive on the actual content. I mean, you've seen them, you've had authors on your show who you feel like maybe they're just doing book reports of other people's ideas.
Yeah.
So
a lot of quotes from different people.
Yes.
It's like they want to have a book just so they can put it on the resume, right?
Exactly. And so, this I mentioned Scott McCain earlier, but he calls these book reports, like people who write book reports instead of actually writing books. And I think it's just such a great thing. You're like, none of them are their own real ideas. And so I feel, again, this goes back to like, it's making space for what is inside of you, your own personal your creativity, right? You talk about your superior self. Like, I feel like it is my responsibility not just to appear somewhere, but to really show up for the people that are on the other side. And I mean, that's why I didn't create the course for a whole year, because I didn't think I could do it right. And now I did it right. And I'm excited about it because I've had people who have taken it who are, have told me that, that it's changed their lives and they're making all these big decisions. And it's really powerful to have that. So, the course comes with, these great videos. It comes with this beautiful I put together a 70-page workbook of exercises. Like, I didn't just do like random, here's some videos. I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm all in. So there's 70 pages of exercises. There's a Facebook community that I go live every Friday, and we have like Zoom conversations and live coaching. It's like, it is an all inclusive experience. It is a full frontal punch in the face wrapped in a warm hug, just like I am. That's it.
That is awesome. So let me just ask you real quick before we end it. Like, who is this course for? Like, who is your student?
So my student is anyone who has spent time during the last few months that has said, when life goes back to normal, I don't know that the normal I'm going to go back to is the life I really want. That's who my course is for. And so these people may be entrepreneurs who have built businesses, who they were really excited about the innovation, but now they've kind of become a slave to like HR and accounting and all of that. It may be people that are in the MLM space who are building businesses where all of a sudden people around them are like, oh, I don't know, now that you're all fancy and all, right? And they're feeling they have to apologize for their ambition. It may be people that are just out of school that are feeling like they did all this work and they're entering a world that isn't necessarily the world that they want to be in. So it's really for people who feel like they did all the right things. They got the success on paper, but they know that there's more out there, and they just know that maybe they got to figure out a framework and a way to get there.
I love it. Showing us the way. Laura Gassner Otting, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been so fun. I love having these conversations. I feel limitless.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me back. Good luck on your run tomorrow.
Yeah, right. I want to say thank you to LGO for joining the show. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I really do appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts. Go to yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message. Let me know what you guys are up to. Follow me on social media, Instagram at TDowns80, Twitter at DownsTrey. Love hearing the stories of inspiration that you guys are sharing with me. I really do appreciate it, and I respect it that you are so vulnerable to share that with me. And seriously, you need to continue grinding out, continue on your path. It's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder, and it's going to be totally worth it at the end. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. This has been amazing. I will talk to you guys later.